Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense amid the pandemic that is sweeping the world and the protests regarding racism and Black Lives Matter all around the world. So we support efforts to make changes to address these issues, of course. But our first story tonight comes from right here in Oregon. May cannabis sales in Oregon reached $100 million for the first time since legalization in 2015, and it marks the third consecutive record-breaking month for the state's industry. According to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, total sales were $103 million in the month of May 2020, which represents a 15% increase from April, when sales topped $89 million. In March, sales reached $83 million, which had been the highest single month total recorded until then. The May totals are a 60% increase from the same month last year. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission had already adjusted its industry-derived tax expectations by $9 million before the May totals. Oregon currently generates more than $100 million annually from cannabis taxes and fees. State budget officials have described the post-pandemic state budget as, quote, the largest downward revision of the quarterly forecast that our office has ever had to make, end quote. The $9 million bump from higher than anticipated cannabis taxes serves as a bright spot for the state's fiscal outlook. State budget analysts also suggested that cannabis sales would begin to trend downward by about 5% due to the lower economic output associated with the pandemic. But they were wrong. A week-to-week analysis found a gradual rise in cannabis sales as the coronavirus spread through Oregon. The most significant increase is occurring just before the governor declared dispensaries an essential business. Our next story tonight comes from Israel. Israeli archaeologists say they found cannabis residue on artifacts from an ancient temple in southern Israel, providing evidence of the use of hallucinogenics in ancient Jewish religion. In a research paper, the author said the discovery from an 8th century BC shrine at Tel Harad offers proof that the use of mind-altering substances was part of the cultic rituals in Judah, including at the first temple that stood in Jerusalem at the same time. In the 1960s, archaeological excavations at Tel Harad, which is 35 miles south of Jerusalem, discovered a stronghold belonging to the ancient kingdom of Judah, and at its core a small shrine bearing striking similarities to the biblical temple in Jerusalem. But for decades, attempts to determine the composition of the black deposits found on 2 limestone altars from the shrine's inner sanctum, now located at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, were inconclusive. Chemical analysis of the samples conducted at Israel's Hebrew University and Technion Institute found that one altar contained the psychoactive compounds found in marijuana, and the other had traces of frankincense, one of the ingredients mentioned in the Bible for the incense sacrifice in the ancient Jewish temples. The researchers published their findings in the academic journal Tel Aviv, Journal of the Institute of Archaeology of Tel Aviv University. Eran Ari, curator of the Iron Age Archaeology Museum at Israel Museum in Jerusalem and a lead author of the study, said the discovery was evidence of cannabis use in the ancient region and in Judahite religion. The official state religion of the Kingdom of Judah was using this substance, Ari said. Because of the site's clear connection to the monarchy, he suggested it could point to how worship was conducted in the biblical temple in Jerusalem. Our next story is from Victoria, Canada. Adults who consume cannabis are no more likely to suffer injuries at work than are those employees who abstain from cannabis, according to the findings of a study published in the journal Substance Use and Misuse. A team of researchers affiliated with the University of British Columbia conducted a systemic review of scientific papers assessing any potential links between cannabis consumption and occupational accidents. Investigators determined that most of the existing literature on the subject is limited by poor research design. Specifically, few studies, quote, employed research designs that ensured that cannabis use preceded the occupational injury outcome, end quote. Others failed to adequately assess or control for confounding variables such as the concurrent use of alcohol or other psychoactive substances. Due to these limitations, the authors concluded, quote, the current body of evidence does not provide sufficient evidence to support the position that cannabis users are at increased risk of occupational injury, end quote. Their findings are consistent with that of the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, which conducted its own literature review in 2017 and concluded, quote, there is no or insufficient evidence to support a statistical association between cannabis use and occupational accidents or injuries, end quote. In recent months, lawmakers in several municipalities, including New York City, Richmond, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., have enacted legislation limiting the use of marijuana-specific pre-employment drug screening. Both Maine and Nevada have enacted state-specific legislation barring certain employers from refusing to hire a worker solely because he or she tested positive for cannabis on a pre-employment drug screen. This study, Systemic Review of Cannabis Use and Risk of Occupational Injury, appears in Substance Use and Misuse. Next story is from Phoenix, Arizona. 2/3 of Arizona voters say they are supportive of a proposed statewide ballot measure to legalize the adult use of cannabis and regulate its commercial production and sale, according to polling compiled by the consulting group High Ground Incorporated. Just under 66% of those surveyed said that they would, quote, definitely or probably vote in November for the Smart and Safe Arizona Act. Advocates have been collecting signatures to place the act before voters this November, but have yet to turn them in to the state regulators for verification. The act would permit those aged 21 or older to possess up to 1 ounce of cannabis and would direct revenue from retail cannabis sales to fund various public safety, education, and safety programs. Democrats, Republicans, and Independents all expressed majority support for the Arizona measure, as did voters over the age of 65. According to Paul Bentz, a senior vice president and of research and strategy at High Ground, he said, quote, as long as Smart and Safe Arizona can qualify for the ballot, all signs point to 2020 being the year that recreational marijuana finally becomes legal in Arizona, end quote. The polling firm is not affiliated with the Smart and Safe Arizona campaign. Statewide polling in New Jersey indicates that over 60% of voters in that state intend to vote yes on a November ballot measure to legalize the use of marijuana by adults in New Jersey. Voters in Mississippi and South Dakota also will be deciding in November on marijuana-specific ballot initiatives. Next story tonight's out of Montana. New rules took effect this week, amending Montana's medical cannabis access program so that registered patients now have the option to obtain marijuana from multiple dispensaries. Under the previous rules, state-qualified patients were limited to purchasing cannabis products from a single designated dispensary. That policy ended Tuesday. Now, patients can visit any of the state's 235 registered facilities. Separate emergency rules passed in response to the COVID pandemic have also taken effect, increasing the total amount of cannabis patients may obtain from a dispensary in a single visit. Under the policy change, patients have the option to purchase up to a 1-month supply of cannabis or 5 ounces during a single visit to a Montana medical dispensary. We have another story from Israel. This one a little more recent. Fibromyalgia patients report mitigating or eliminating their use of prescription medications following their use of medical cannabis, according to data published in the Israeli scientific journal Harafua. A team of Israeli researchers assessed characteristics in 181 medical cannabis patients with fibromyalgia. Qualified patients may legally access state-regulated medical cannabis products in Israel. After initiating cannabis therapy, 51% of the subjects either, quote, reduced the dose or the number of medications, end quote, that they took to treat fibromyalgia-related symptoms. Nearly half of the study's participants reported ceasing their use of prescription medications altogether. Participants in the study were most likely to report either smoking or vaporizing cannabis flower, about 72%, and only 3% of subjects reported using cannabis oil extracts. Patients were most likely to report that their medical cannabis mitigated their pain and improve the quality of sleep. The authors concluded, quote, medical cannabis is an effective treatment for fibromyalgia. Medical cannabis treatment enabled nearly half of the patients to discontinue any treatment for fibromyalgia, and all participants recommended medical cannabis treatment for their loved ones in case they develop severe fibromyalgia. Mild adverse effects were reported in nearly a quarter of the patients, but did not result in discontinuing its consumption, end quote. Both observational and placebo-controlled trials have shown that the use of either whole plant cannabis or synthetic cannabinoids are associated with reduced symptoms in patients with fibromyalgia. The study, Characteristics of Medical Cannabis Use Among Patients with Fibromyalgia, appears in the current edition of Hara-Fua, an Israeli medical journal. And our last story tonight is out of Pullman, Washington. Inhaled cannabis temporarily mitigates symptoms of post-traumatic stress, including anxiety and flashbacks, according to clinical trial data published in the Journal of Affective Disorders. A team of investigators affiliated with Washington State University and the University of Pennsylvania Perelman School of Medicine assessed the use of marijuana in 404 medical cannabis patients who self-identified as suffering from post-traumatic stress. On average, respondents reported a 62% reduction in the severity and intrusiveness of their post-traumatic stress, a 51% reduction in flashbacks, a 67% reduction in irritability, and a 57% reduction in the severity of anxiety from before to after inhaling cannabis. The researchers reported no significant differences in subjects' outcomes that were attributable to specific varieties of cannabis and or THC CBD content. The authors reported that cannabis effects on post-traumatic stress symptoms were relatively short-lived and that regular use of marijuana over the study period did not influence the subject's baseline symptom ratings. The authors of the study concluded, quote, results from the present study indicate that acute cannabis intoxication provides temporary relief from intrusions, flashbacks, irritability, and anxiety in individuals self-identifying as having post-traumatic stress disorder, end quote. The full text of this study, Short and Long-Term Effects of Cannabis on Symptoms of Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, appears in the current issue of the Journal of Affective Disorders. Thank you again for tuning in for our Hemp News segment. We stream this on YouTube and on Facebook, and we play it on cable television in the Portland, Oregon area. If you need to reach us or if you need a recommendation for medical marijuana, we have references to doctors all across the country, even the world. So call us at 503-235-4606. Again, that's 503-235-4606. Thanks for watching, and remember to help restore hemp.
And we love our dark skin. We are not ashamed. We are not embarrassed. We are not humiliated by the racism in this country, because the people that are pushing it out there, they're the ones who should be ashamed of themselves. All of us are disgusted by racism. Fuck that shit. One of the things that I need to talk about today is not only the decriminalization, which we're continuously fighting for. Marijuana use in this city, in this state, is supposed to be legal, but we still have to worry about where we can legally use, where we can legally medicate. My son is right now on RSO oil for his seizures. He has grand mal seizures. The only thing that helps him and his wife, who has epilepsy, is the use of the cannabis and the oils that it produces. But having access to it is the biggest problem for him, because you know what? If you can't afford to get it as a medical patient and keep up all the bureaucracy and policy behind that, then being a recreational user, you're still being criminalized, and especially a child with brown skin who has seizures, who might seize during a car while he's driving. He might have a seizure at the time that he's walking his kids to the park. And you know what's my biggest fear is that happening and the police hurting him, taking his life, because they don't know that he's having an attack. They don't know that he's having a health issue at the time because of how we see people that utilize marijuana in this country. One of the things that he has to deal with, not only the seizures, but having to deal with racism every day. He is in an interracial relationship. His wife was told one day by a child that she grew up with that she was a breeder now because she had mixed kids by my son. How humiliating for not only them as a couple that's trying to live in the year 2017, 2018 in America, to be humiliated by racism, but to know that they're pushing that on their children. I advocate for a lot of children, and one of the things I tell them is that the things that are happening right now, they're not their faults. And they don't have to carry on the same traditions and values and policies that we've been taking into consideration to reform. They need to break these systems. Fuck reform. It's time for reconstruction. And when we talk about reconstruction, we know that it doesn't take rocket science to make outside public consumption a thing. We know that it adds to the value of public safety because people don't have to hide what they're doing when they're trying to deal with the girls of today. All of these ills that we're dealing with, all of the things that are creating PTSD in all of us. If you didn't have PTSD before the Trump inauguration, you got it now. I was in the hospital watching it on morphine, dying, coming out of a surgery, and I knew that we were in for a fight. I got out of that hospital ready. I got out of that hospital. I connected with the ACLU. I connected with Indivisible Oregon. I connected with my community, and we kept moving. Because the fact that we're getting tired of fighting, it doesn't mean that we're losing. It just means that we have to be more innovative in the way that we do our outreach. Everybody should be on the front line. Nobody should be behind. We don't have saviors in this movement. We have allies. We have comrades. We have people that feel the same way that we do. And the only thing that is in between us is legalities. People think that speaking out, freedom of speech, that's violent. People see it as violent if they don't control the conversation. We have right now, with the legalization in the state of Oregon, the opportunity to change that conversation. This industry is making money. That money can be used for our education. And I'm not talking about only the education in our schools. I'm talking about political education. When our numbers and our neighbors understand the value of what we're talking about, when we need to continue to influence policy, when they become the allies in this fight, we will win. When we invest in elected officials that understand the priorities when we talk about public safety and marijuana use and not having our children be tased and chased and shot for having a joint or a pipe in their pocket, when they understand the value of integrating what they believe is a better future into where we're talking about having access, liberation, then that's when those things will change. Put your money in this industry where our future needs to be. Give our children access to the guidance that they need. Give them a blank slate. Let's make something that matters happen. We don't have to propagate the falsehoods of the people that we elect that come to us with lip service. Vote them out. Vote them out. If you don't trust them, don't give them a chance. We in this industry, we understand what second chances look like, and we haven't gotten them from an elected leader. We haven't gotten them from a political relationship or legislation. They just keep putting our ideas and our thoughts and our necessities on the back burner. No more. I'm trying to see a revolution. I remember when New Approach and Anthony Johnson, when all of that was happening, and I was standing on the front line as a candidate for Multnomah County because I understood it to be a health necessity. I understood that having access to it, that it would decrease the necessity for our courts to deal with us on a criminal level. And it would encourage our health departments and our health resource operators to utilize it as a leverage where there is no opportunity for those that do not have access to the health care that will make us healthy. We know RSO works. It's on the record. It works. We know that legal consumption, if done properly through our process, don't let somebody who's never used weed tell you how to policy it, how to legislate it, how to make it right. We know it's normal for us. We don't want to be normalized by their bullshit politics. So let's create what we need, and let's do it together. Smoke.
Congratulations, Rose City. We did it. It's legal. But we got a long way to go. And when Iko called and asked if I would speak today, I was like, sure, I would love to speak. Because check this out. About 15 years ago, y'all, I was locked up at the Justice Center looking outside at Portland from a jail cell for being arrested for 2 months over less than half a gram of marijuana. So to be able to be standing right here at Pioneer Square 15 years after that incident and being able to voice my opinion on the benefits of marijuana.
Yep.
I'm trying to weed my mother, who's a diabetic. She had a stroke a few years ago, and the marijuana has been helping her way better than the medication has. And she's been a big skeptic about it for years, like a lot of our elders
I think
are.
I'm pretty good, but yeah.
And these pharmaceutical companies is killing their pockets. They're killing the pockets, and then they won't legalize cannabis for the people that really need it. You know what I mean? It's cool to have it for recreational purposes, but there's people and kids that are benefiting from the CBDs, you know what I mean? They don't do it to get recreationally high, so to speak. And it's important to know that. It's important, like Madeline always encourages us at every rally, to make sure we get out and vote. It's important. We have a say-so in the direction of this, you know? Speaking of Madeline Martinez, her movement is what led to the music that we're about to provide for you. So give this lady, this queen of Portland, a big round of applause for her leadership. Her leadership and her fight for all of us. Yeah. So
How y'all doing, Portland?
What's up, Dub? Portland, come together. Y'all, everybody come to the front of the stage.
Y'all can come a little bit closer.
I got some CDs to give out, too.
Couple of your hometown boys, Mac and Dub in the smoking section. Help end marijuana prohibition. That's what the sign says. It's my guy Iko in the building. Brian Ray, Madeline Martinez, Teresa Rayford, Just Johnny. Sound good, sound good. Think we've been doing this about 6-7 years right now. What's up, baby? I'm very happy to be at the 19th annual Global Cannabis March. Shout out to Stony Girl Gardens.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lonely Law Group, Green Leaf Labs, Oregon Normal, the world famous Cannabis Cafe, Oregon Hemp Works. Of course, the pioneer, Mr. Paul Stafford.
More kick drum, please. Can we get more kick drum in the monitor, please, Mr. Soundman? Y'all give it up for the sound company, my guy Iko and everybody holding it down. Yeah. This song right here is dedicated to the world famous Cannabis Cafe. It was the first of its kind to ever do what they did, you know what I mean?
And ideas. Oh my God, it was
Ideas.
marvelous.
We love you. Teresa Rayford, we see you out there. Yeah, don't shoot PDX in the building. Cannabis fighters worldwide. If you ever went to the Cannabis Cafe, if you know our music, sing along with us, y'all.
Meet me at the cafe. When you get to dig and take a ride, I'ma be there all day.
What we doing, Dub?
Smoking on something nice. I'm tired of stressing, my body's aching. I wish this pain would go away. My addiction is my prescription, and I need it every day. Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane, 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 Jane.
Need it every day.
Doctor, here's the news. I got a bad case of putting weed in my food, and I smoke every night before the 6 o'clock news. And at least 2 blunts before I put on my shoes. I put blood butter on my purple haze pancakes. Got a little tincture for my pain tonight, but I think I'm gonna go ahead switch up today. So if you find yourself around my way,
you can.
meet me at the cafe.
Where's it at?
When you get to dig 'em, take a ride. I'ma be there all day.
What we doing, Portland?
Smoking on something nice. I'm tired of stressing, my body's aching. I wish this pain would go away. My addiction is my prescription, and I need it every day. Mary Jane, 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 Jane.
Sing it with us.
Mary Jane, 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 Jane.
I can't hear you.
Oh, Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane, 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 Jane. I need it every day. Now here I go.
Out the door, another chronic episode. Trying to squeeze these 28 hours into 24 to the liquor store. No, I'm sliding by the cafe to keep that green inside the jars every single day, man.
Roll with Atlanta, smoking big with Don Juan.
They say then handed me the gravity bomb.
With that phone, the smoke color, the smoke don't talk about.
I did it anyway. We're getting blown away. Come on, y'all. When you get to Deacon, take a ride.
I'ma be there all day.
What up, Maury? Yo.
Smoking on something nice. I'm tired of stressing, my body's aching. I wish this pain would go away. My addiction is my prescription, and I need it every day. Mary Jane, 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 Jane.
What you got there, Doug?
Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane, 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 Jane.
Sing it with us, y'all.
Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Need it every day. When I say fire it, y'all say fire it, fire it, When I say, y'all say pass it, puff it,
Pass it,
puff it,
pass it.
When I say smoking, y'all say section, smoking,
Section,
smoking,
section.
When I say Mac and Dub, y'all say Mac and Dub, Mac and Dub,
Mac and Dub,
Mac and Dub,
Mac and Dub.
Cafe. When you get to Deacon, take a ride. I'ma be there all day. What you doing, y'all? Smoking on something nice. I'm tired of stressing, my body's aching. I wish this pain would go away. My addiction is my prescription, and I need it every day. Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane, 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 Jane. Mary Jane,
Take it
Jane,
out.
Jane, Jane. I need it every day.
Smoke big.
Live good.
Mac and Dub and the smoking section band. Hey, y'all, we got a special guest with us on stage. I don't know if you know this gentleman. We call him Uncle Ricky. He's Uncle Snoop Dogg's uncle. Joining us on the bass tonight, y'all. Bringing that funky bass with us. Shout out to Uncle Ricky with the smoking section tonight.
All right, what a beautiful day, man. I'm really happy to be here. Who here believes that everybody should have access to cannabis? No matter your political affiliation, no matter your race, no matter your ethnicity, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, right? Everybody should have access to cannabis. Now, who thinks everyone should have access to the best cannabis in the world, like here in Portland? This is without a doubt the best cannabis. I've traveled all around the world, and Portland has the best cannabis in the world. But when I was in the South, when I was in the Southern USA, we don't have laws that are quite as liberal as they are here in Portland. My father spent 7 years in prison for an ounce of cannabis before he was going to get into the top college in North Carolina, and ended up having to come out and become a janitor. And every year he worked up with our family, and we moved to another city. And when I finally got a chance to have cannabis, when I finally got a chance to experience it, I ended up getting arrested too. I was arrested a total of 4 times for cannabis possession. One time even for a seed. I was arrested and spent 2 nights in prison, 2 nights in jail. Luckily I never got a chance to go to prison. So when people in our community, in communities that have been highly impacted by cannabis prohibition, are very bitter, kind of look at the cannabis industry as something that is not for them, something that will not help them. And we all know that everyone having access to the best cannabis is something that will help them. So when I finally got a chance to move to Portland and finally got a chance to consume cannabis without getting arrested, I wanted to learn more about growing. I wanted to learn more about the industry. And it was the people of Portland that opened up their doors, opened up their grow rooms, opened up their grow shops, their knowledge to teach me how to grow the best cannabis in the world. And we started Loud Cannabis here in Portland, Oregon, contributing to the craft cannabis story here in Portland. But if you're in the cannabis industry, if you're benefiting from the cannabis industry, you cannot do it without understanding the history of the industry. You cannot do it without contributing to the people who have paid that sacrifice and have opened up for legalization to actually happen. We never thought legalization was a real thing in the South. We never thought it could happen, but it's here, and it's here because of all of those people. So each and every one of us, no matter whether you're going to a dispensary, no matter whether you're contributing and buying from your local grower, you have to find a way to help alleviate some of the issues that have been caused through cannabis prohibition. And one way to do that is to work with the New Leaf Project here in Portland, Oregon. Portland was the first city in the country. I want to say that one more time. Portland was the first city in the country to open up some of this cannabis tax to help people who have been targeted by cannabis prohibition. You got to think about how monumental that is for a city to open up and become the first. And it's happening all across the country because of what Portland has done. And as a result of that, organizations like the New Leaf Project that my wife Jeanette Ward is running and I'm helping with, and so many other Portland citizens are supporting, is opening up and helping with expungement opportunities. It's helping to give grants to black-owned and minority-owned cannabis businesses. It's helping to contribute to that history and alleviate that history that has been caused. Now there is a long way to go, without a doubt. There is a lot that we have to do. But what I want everybody here to think about as I leave the stage here is, how am I going to contribute to helping these issues that have been caused by cannabis prohibition? Am I going to support the dispensary that is helping to make these movements like Green Hop? Am I going to help support the cannabis companies that are helping to contribute? Am I going to help by just helping the everyday Portland citizens out here on the street every day by giving them a joint, right? Whatever it may be, how can you help everybody here through the cannabis legalization movement? And I want to thank all the Portland citizens. I would not be in this cannabis industry without this amazing city and without the amazing fighters here in Oregon that helped to open up legalization. So thank you very much everyone here who's helped with that, and thank you everyone who will contribute to making a better cannabis legalization picture in the state of Oregon.
So we got something through in 2015 that basically said that there was a process for expungement. But what we didn't realize is how much it cost each person. Senate Bill 420 right now is moving its way through the House. It already passed out of the Senate, so it's moving its way through the House. And I hope that it will pass out of the House. We're going to be in front of the House Judiciary Committee, I believe, 2 weeks from Monday, and we're going to be trying to get that through. And it basically says that if you fill out a form and you have your information about when your arrest took place, you can get it expunged. No court fees. You're going to be able to do this quickly. The whole idea is to try to get that stigma away and to get people be able to get their records going and get back in the ability to rent houses, to get jobs, and to be able to get education loans. Those are the things that we're working on. So I want you to pay attention to Senate Bill 420 and pay attention to Senate Bill 975, because it drops the felony convictions for marijuana to misdemeanors and citations, which will also help people as well. So please take a look at that. I'm proud that I was able to get something through. The biggest problem was you were not, the convictions, the court records did not say marijuana on them. They said possession of a controlled substance, which would have been a number of different things. So that's why they couldn't get it through this time, but we are able to get it so that court fees are waived, and it's going to cost a whole lot less, if nothing, perhaps nothing at all in some cases. So I hope we'll be able to continue to do this kind of work and get some things done. Thank you very much.
Got the ganja right. Well, fire upon all the wicked heathen, 'cause Jah got the real man right. I say fire burn, fire Nation who don't want to give me ganja rights. Fire has been burned. Fire has been burned. Fire has been burned. Burn fire. Burn
Hustling on down, hustling street. Rag man, rag woman, paper bags full. Street age alert in tinted child's eyes. Sidewalk playgrounds, got to beware. Junk man's in the shadows, dealing his junk. Beautiful sisters deal themselves around. Beautiful brothers, not so beautiful anymore. So much older than the day before. Ain't everybody tired of being poor? Message in the scroll, message on the wall. Graffiti man's got something to say. Down, something's wrong, not our fault. We gotta be cool, our time will come. Open spaces on shopping center walls. Middle class man, middle class land. Clean enough to be a family affair. Nice place to take wide-eyed child. Controlled climates. Neat little shops all laid out. Everything for sale by cash or plastic. Price not negotiable, but payment is. Spend some money, buy some more. Graffiti man's got something to say. Message in the scroll, message on the wall. Put on blinders, dull the senses. Who's worth more than money they spend? Skyscraper building, corporate corridor. High finance, big businessman suit. Not stained by sweat or blood or money. Sophistication smiles, hide stain and decay. Dividing profits among themselves. Spoils of war, or spoils of war, says junk man, owner of the junk. Graffiti man's got something to say. Message in a scroll, message on the wall. Down with bosses, no more bosses. Something's gotta change. Something's gotta change. seeding life. And the earth is our mother. And the land is her flesh. And the water is her milk. And the oil is her blood. And we are her children. In this land we come from, of this earth we're made of, with us as future ancestors, given responsibilities to live. We are the future we bring. If we don't take care of the land, how can the land take care of us? Same with sky and air we breathe. Today is time to remember tomorrow. In the reality of we reap what we sow. The reality of land and life is in the seed. Seed has memory of life. Wild seed memory. Keeping alive, up close, face to face with the destroyers and their synthetic seed without memory. Toxic planting poison in earth and minds. Disregarding well-being for maximizing profits. Abandoning the children to massive debt. Making the price of freedom unaffordable at the expense of the many for the benefit of the few. Like a spreading mad human disease, chaosing minds with liars' promises, seeding old fears with new fears, life in the world of the money man. It's time to think our way out of what we believed our way into. How can we show respect to life if we don't use our common sense? Wild seed, life seeding life, and the earth is our mother. And the land is her flesh, and the water is her milk, and the oil is her blood. We are her children.
Seattle on I-5. Yeah, it's a long ass drive down through Olympia, Tacoma, Centralia. You're finally hitting Vancouver, you know, and there's that, and there's the river right in front of you, and that big bridge. It's a big sign that says "Welcome to Hempstock," with an arrow pointing over to the right, which is actually the left, if you know what I'm saying. Well, let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. Get the monkey off of your back and take our culture back. Well, now we've been here for 1,000,000 years. Music filling up the people's ears, and we always sang our own song until the music business came along. And I don't know, I could be wrong. But I ain't about to just tag along behind somebody with a bankroll hanging out, telling me what I can sing about. So let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. Get the monkey off of your back and take our culture back. Hollywood spectacle and prime promenade. Think of all that money just waiting to be made, and all you gotta do is go. You'll be sitting up pretty on Gangsters Row. Now it ain't smart to be misled by some Beavis and Butthead. You can have your hip Seattle slacker, just give me a good computer hack. Well, let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. WikiLeaks, take the government off your back and take our culture back. Yep. You gotta get inside to break it out. You gotta be outside to know what I'm talking about. 2 heads and a million eyes, and we can cut this thing right down to size. Now culture is a weaponry in all our great humanity, and survival is a counterattack. So let's take our culture back. Let's take our culture back. Take our culture back. Get the monkey off of your back and take our culture back right now.